Welcome back to Millennium TV 24. Again, we want to thank Vanessa Gibson, and we are hoping that she will be elected for the next Bronx Borough president. Female, black woman, we need that in the Bronx. All right, so we're going to go next into our next story. In the next story, we got 2 people who were killed in Mississippi as the Hurricane Ida hits with heavy rainfall. At least 2 people were killed and 10 others were injured late on Tuesday in Mississippi when their vehicles drove into a large muddy pit following torrential rain from the powerful Hurricane Ida that resulted in part of a highway being washed away. Officials believe that heavy rainfall may have resulted in the collapse of 2-lane Mississippi Highway 26 west of Lucedale Town, and the drivers may have not seen that road in front of them that had disappeared. Police said several cars fell into a hole that was 15 to 18 meters long. Since Sunday, Mississippi has been battered by torrential rain from Ida, which made landfall in Louisiana as a Category 4 storm on Sunday. It led into flash flooding in and around Lucedale, the area that has seen 10 to 13 inches of rain since the storm began, with isolated higher amounts, according to satellite images. The National Weather Service said that 2 inches of rain an hour were falling in the area. Meanwhile, Louisiana faced widespread power outages and flooding as officials examined the damage caused by Hurricane Ida, which first struck that state on Sunday. In Louisiana, a man had died while attempting to drive across a flooded area of New Orleans. Another man died after being struck by a tree near Baton Rouge. Many people in South Louisiana have felt suffocated amid the summer heat and are braced for a month without electricity and reliable water supplies after the hurricane. The death toll from the hurricane is expected to rise in the coming days, and authorities across the South urge residents not to return home amid warnings of a storm surge and heavy rain. Hurricane Ida is expected to move northeast with rain and threat of floods stretching from the Tennessee to the mid-Atlantic. The cities now are under flash flood warnings include Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., and Baltimore. New York City, a flash flood watch has been activated for Wednesday evening due to a widespread heavy rain from the remnants of Hurricane Ida. Due to the conditions, the New York City Department of Emergency Management is issuing a citywide travel advisory Wednesday morning into Thursday afternoon. Commuters will want to take to the roads with extra cautionary measures as the wind and flooding could create potentially dangerous situations. So whether it's driving, biking, or even walking, pack those rain boots and an umbrella for Wednesdays and Thursdays commute. Also, New England and upstate has some weather advisory. I advise you guys to take a look at that as well, and please be safe out there. And next we have the Black U.S. farmers awaiting billions in promised relief funds. And I wanted to talk about this because we just had Triple J Farms on our segment the other week, and I wanted to just go into details with what's going on with that. It was a time when black farms prospered. Just 2 generations out of slavery, by 1910, black farmers had amassed more than 16 million acres of land and made up about 14% of farmers. The fruit of their labors fed much of America. Now they have fewer than 4.7 million acres. Black farms in the U.S. plummeted from 925,000 to fewer than 36,000. That is a lot. That's according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture's latest farm census. And only about 1 in 100 farmers is black. What happened? So they were able to overcome the broken promise of 40 acres and a mule, right? To the newly freed slaves, a military order later rescinded. But over the last century, they faced one obstacle after another because of their race. Farmers needed loans to expand, to buy seed, to bridge the time between harvests. But lenders, chief among them the USDA, often refused to give them money and often rushed to foreclose. Suppliers and customers undercut them. Laws of inheritance led to the breakup of homesteads. Now, the government wants to make amends by providing billions of dollars in debt forgiveness for farmers of color as part of the pandemic relief package. But a judge has put the money on hold in the face of lawsuits filed by white farmers claiming that the program is unfair, which is reverse discrimination. Today's black farmers and the descendants of black farmers who struggled and lost their states argue that they are the ones who have been the victims of injustice. The Virginia farmer who barely was able to keep part of this farm when the USDA threatened to sell it at auction. The Kansas man who lost the land his grandparents once homesteaded. The Arkansas farmer who is holding on by a thread, praying the federal aid will come through in time. It was racism, says farmer John Wesley Boyd Jr., and it still is. The settlement provided about $1 billion to 15,000 farmers who said USDA unfairly turned them down for loans because of their race between 1981 and 1996. A second round of $2.5 billion stemming from that lawsuit was approved by the court in 2011 for people who were denied earlier payments because they missed filing deadlines. It is up to the Secretary of Agriculture and other responsible officials at the USDA to fulfill its promises, to ensure that this shameful period is never repeated, and to bring the USDA into the 21st century, the judge wrote. The USDA paid more than $2.4 billion under the Pig Force settlements, state taxes eroded recoveries, debt relief was incomplete, and reports before Congress show that the settlements did not cure the problems faced by minority farmers. So we are hoping that they get the money and everything that these farmers deserve. What we're going to do is go into our next story, and we're going to Afghanistan. The new Taliban rulers face tough economic security challenges. Afghanistan's new Taliban rulers face tough economic and security challenges as they step back into power into a country that is vastly different from the one they left 20 years ago. When they last ruled in the late 1990s, Afghanistan was a poor agricultural nation, and the Taliban were preoccupied with imposing their harsh brand of Islam on an already deeply traditional and largely compliant population. This time, they're inheriting a more developed society with a small educated middle class, but also an economy that has been devastated by war and corruption. Even before the Taliban overran Kabul on August 15th, the jobless rate was more than 30%, and more than half of Afghans live in poverty, despite 2 decades of the U.S. involvement and billions of dollars in aid. The Taliban has sought to reassure Afghans that they've changed from 1996, when they ruled with a heavy hand. Men had to grow beards, and women had to wear the all-encompassing burqa. Girls were denied education, and entertainment like music and television were shunned. So in the past, groups of Taliban fighters who felt the movement had betrayed its original hardline beliefs defected to the Islamic State group, now a major security threat in the country. Last week, an IS suicide bomber blew himself up outside of Kabul's airport, killing 169 Afghans and 13 U.S. service members, and disrupting the Taliban's effort to facilitate a massive U.S. airlift. Time also is not on the side of the Taliban. The economy has been in the doldrums for years. If peace comes to Afghanistan, its citizens will increase their demands for economic relief, a near impossibility if the international community, which had funded 80% of former President Ashraf Ghani's government, withdraws its support. A new government must deliver quickly and ease the economic crisis. Well, we're going to move on to our next story, and let's see what's going on in the White House. White House details plans to improve housing affordability. White House officials are outlining plans to build and restore more than 2 million homes, a response to the volcanic rise in housing prices over the past year. Millions of Americans are getting priced out of ownership or stuck spending the bulk of their income on rent. The S&P CoreLogic Case-Shiller 20-City Home Price Index climbed a record of 19.1% in June from a year ago, as too few homes are available to buy, and low interest rates have enabled affluent buyers and real estate investors to pay more for homes. The jump in prices is a threat to President Joe Biden's vision of centering the U.S. economy around the middle class, which is a group that has defined itself in large part, though, through home ownership. Americans' desire to own homes has also altered regional politics, as suburbanites align with Democrats in 2020 to help give Biden key victories in Arizona and Georgia, two states that have added population through new home construction. But first, it intends to deliver 100,000 affordable housing units over 3 years through a series of administrative changes. It will increase mortgage availability through Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae for manufactured houses and buildings with 2 to 4 units. The government also intends to make it easier for would-be owners and nonprofits to buy homes that fail to sell in foreclosure auctions, as well as expand outreach to local governments and nonprofits to buy federally held homes. The government also plans to increase the financing options for apartment buildings through tax credits, loans, and grants. Secondly, the Biden administration estimates that its economic agenda will lead to the construction and renovation of 2 million homes. This would include the use of federal subsidies, the low-income housing tax credit, a new tax credit for construction and economically vulnerable neighborhoods, and incentives to remove exclusionary zoning and land use policies by local and state governments that limit new construction. What? They say affordable housing, right? But yes, let's just move on to our next story. In Texas, the 6-week abortion ban takes effect with high court mom. A Texas law banning most abortions in the state took effect at midnight, but the Supreme Court has yet to act on an emergency appeal to put the law on hold. If allowed to remain in force, the law would be the most dramatic restriction on abortion rights in the United States since the High Court's landmark Roe v. Wade decision legalized abortion across the country in 1973. The Texas law signed by Republican Governor Greg Abbott in May would prohibit abortions once a fetal heartbeat can be detected, usually around 6 weeks and before most women even know that they're pregnant. Abortion providers who are asking the Supreme Court to step in said that the law will rule out 85% of abortions in Texas and force many clinics to close. Planned Parenthood is among the abortion providers that have stopped scheduling abortions beyond 6 weeks from conception. At least 12 of the states have enacted bans on abortion early in pregnancy, but all have been blocked from going into effect. What makes the Texas law different is its unusual enforcement scheme. Rather than have officials responsible for enforcing the law, private citizens are authorized to sue abortion providers and anyone involved in facilitating abortions. Among other situations, that would include anyone who drives a woman to a clinic to get an abortion. Under the law, anyone who successfully sues another person would be entitled to at least $10,000. Abortion opponents who wrote the law also made it difficult to challenge the law in court, in part because it's hard to know whom to sue. Texas has long had some of the nation's toughest abortion restrictions, including a sweeping law passed in 2013 that the Supreme Court eventually struck down, but not before more than half of the state's 40-plus abortion clinics closed. Lawmakers are also moving forward in an ongoing special session in Texas with proposed new restrictions on medication abortion, a method using pills that accounts for roughly 40% of the abortions in the United States. But that is our country for us. So we're going to end this story here. Please make sure to download the apps on your Androids, your iPhones, your smart TVs. Download the app on Roku TV, Apple TV, your Amazon Fire Stick. We're watching Millennium TV 24. I am Kim Seabrook. You've been watching the Good Looking News. We thank you. We appreciate you.